so it seems we are online, and it means that it's time to start. So we are starting. Again, hello everyone. I'm very glad to welcome all of you on our GameDev Recruiter. That's how I call this position, but you will see that other people could call this position differently, like video game recruiter, actually technical recruiter. And today we have class number 1, Introduction to Game Dev Recruiting. So let's start and let's learn something new. So what's in it for you? Why you should take this course, right? Because working in game dev, which is game development, you can earn more than the average recruiter, but it's not the main point. Your life in game development company will never be boring again, because this industry is so special. You will like it and or you will hate it, right? But you will not be absolutely neutral to this industry. Never, never. This is a course website, right? And actually, let me introduce myself so you know a little bit about myself. I started my career at Alpha Bank. It was financial industry. I wouldn't say it was boring because this bank is a retail bank. It was both corporate and retail, and I worked at retail part, and the bank was growing. It was fun, lots of young people, lots of new technologies, very good office. I liked it a lot. Then I worked at one of the biggest Eastern European TV channel. Actually, it was not just TV channel, it was media company. There was very big production. We had over 2,500 employees there. And I started as head of recruitment and onboarding department, and then I became head of HR. And with this experience, working in media company, I was asked to join a wargaming company. It was publishing department, the department that publishes computer games, right? And they said that my experience at media company is very similar to how their company works. And I joined that company and I liked it a lot. It was beautiful, almost 3 years working there. Yeah, I will share my experience. And after that, actually, I left just because this work was outside my country. So I had to relocate. I lived in another country. It was Belarus. But of course, it was not just about Belarus, because Belarus was the biggest development center for wargaming. It was 2,000 employees there at the time. And they traveled to Cyprus a lot, like the headquarters was at Cyprus. But yeah, it was Belarus, so I decided to come back to Kiev. Yeah, because like when you live in another country, you should decide if you want to become the part of that country or you want to just come back. I decided that I will come back. And then I worked for Preply company, which was the startup at that time. And I built the HR department. Then I joined Ideals company, B2B SaaS company, and I built another HR department there. And then I worked with PeopleForce, which is all-in-one HR platform, and I helped them to build this software, to build new features, new amazing features. And during my corporate work, I started my academy. Recently, I developed Pop HR, very interested in HR consulting software that I'm going to improve and to develop further. This is my experience. And of course, I'm a gamer. I played a lot during my student years, during my school years, different platforms, different games, and now I'm hard. Can't say maybe hard, but actually I play every day. I play Hearthstone, which is card game. I play on my mobile. And I prefer arena games. I prefer to play with other gamers. I don't take quests. Actually, I don't have much time. Like, probably I play 30 to 60 minutes a day. Yeah. Quite. I would say it's a big portion of my time, but I wouldn't say it's a lot. Yeah, so this is my time at wargaming. These particular photos, they are taken at Cyprus. It had Wargaming headquarters. Of course, there were lots of people from different companies like Riot, like Electronic Arts, like Blizzard and others. And they were my colleagues, right? Yeah, and Wargaming is very interesting company. This is great company with great computer games, AAA computer game, World of Tanks, of course, but then World of Warplane, World of Warships, also other games like Master of Iron. They bought this license, and actually other games as well. So in my in my courses, I rely not just on my experience, which I had like almost 20 years, but also I rely on best practices, different research, different framework, different company experience, just to enrich my own experience and give you the best I have and I can. Now about homework. This course, as all of our courses, it has homeworks or home assignments. That is going to be 8, right? The amount of our classes. And all completed homework and all accepted homework, they qualify you for obtain our diploma of completion that we issue on a credible platform, which is very popular in the world. Google, Slack, Harvard, and other companies, they also issue their diplomas there. This is a course program. We are starting from the introduction to game dev recruiting. Then we will learn game development process and game design. Of course, it's not just about the game development process. Every lesson will be also about game dev recruitment, but this is like a title of the lesson. What game dev developers do, the technology stack in game dev, art direction in game dev. And for example, when we will be learning about art direction in game dev, we will be learning how to find artists, how to find designers, how to find all those people from art department for your game dev company. Other roles in game dev, where and how to look for game dev employees in general, how to evaluate game dev candidates, and how to communicate with game dev candidates. What kind of specifics to use. And this is a class program. Today we will learn who is a game dev recruiter, what a game dev recruiter needs to know. I call it game dev, but it's also video game like studio recruiter. So how much do game dev recruiters earn? How is working in game development different from working in general IT? Who are gamers and how does it affect game development? The role of community in game development. Where do game developers, students learn or study? Company culture in game dev, and I'll share some interesting sources to learn even more. Resources for reading about game development and types of game development companies. So let's start our journey and let's learn how it works. So let's start from this. We all are gamers. There are over 3.4 billion players in the world, like half of the world population, of conscious world population, because there are newborns, there are some elder people, but I would say like half of world population, they play computer games, right? And games are the main form of entertainment, and it changes, right? Because previously it was like a TV, cable TV, just a TV, some home entertainment, like box office music, but gaming is becoming more and more popular. People spend more money on gaming rather than other form of their entertainment, which grow this industry, right? So like people feed this industry with money, and then entrepreneurs and business, they come to this business, to this industry to take their money back, right? To take their money, to take their earnings. Like those companies like Microsoft, like Facebook previously, now it's Meta, they want to be there, they want to earn that money, they want to be part of that world, because it's expected that we will eventually wear our virtual reality glasses and somehow interact with each other and somehow interact with this world like gamers do currently. So who's a game dev recruiter? Could be game dev recruiter or video game recruiter. This is another form of job title. Also, they be called game recruiter or gaming recruiter or game studio recruiter or game development recruiting expert. Technical recruiter, which is similar to game dev, right? Or just a recruiter or talent acquisition or whatever, like talent acquisition specialist, talent acquisition manager, and other kind of forms of specialist. Okay, so who's the recruiter? Recruiter in the game dev industry, often a gamer included, so they are very often gamers themselves. And for example, at Wargaming, when ex-HR, actually they didn't call him HR, they called him head of talents, I assume, Jerry Prochaska. So he only hired previous gamers or current gamers because when you work in game development, it's very good when HR and specifically recruiters, they do play computer games or just video games, right? It's fairly close to an IT recruiter, but it has some differences. Game development positions are 80% similar to those in general IT or general high-tech industry. But also there are some unique roles like game designer, you will only find in game development, concept artist, story writer, community specialist, 2D, 3D artist, sound designer, engine developer, these kind of positions and some other positions, they are very rare to general IT companies. Yes, of course, you may find some of them there and here, but basically you will find them more in video game industry. So what a game dev recruiter needs to know. So we have the test. You may take this test and you may assess your knowledge. This is free for our students. To take the test, you need to download this presentation. This presentation is below the video in your student account. You download the presentation, you click that link, and you may take the test and learn what kind of competencies you have and what kind of competencies you have to develop. So you need to know sourcing. We will see some details there. Industry knowledge, which is game development industry, ownership of the company situation, internal situation, interaction with the customer, with the hiring manager, right? Interaction with the candidate, mastery of search techniques, mastery of evaluation techniques, interaction with counterparties like job portals like LinkedIn, international recruiting, mastery of supporting tools, self-management, branding and company, hiring young professionals, basic adaptation and retention, and self-efficiency. So these are the competencies. The sourcing set of competencies are very important because very often at game development industry, you have to find those candidates. You don't just wait, they apply to your position, right? So what you need to know here, you need to know some plugins, Google search operators, some basic Boolean search, X-ray search, how to develop sourcing strategy, how to select synonyms, some search channels that we will learn, and we will learn some search channels specifically for game development industry. Search for candidate contact information like paid tools and free approaches. Review and define the format of the reach out, like channels, frequency of sending emails, base time to send, etc. Tools for implementing email, newsletters, or just email chains. Creating marketing content, standardizing all possible formats, options to attract passive candidates to your funnel. Features of international search plus expat search approaches. Tracking sourcing effectiveness, what metrics to consider and how best to do it. And specifics of executive sourcing. This is for sourcing. Then some key terms you need to know to work with developers, because there are lots of developers in game development. Not just developers, QA engineers, DevOps, product managers, project managers, and others. So you need to know some basic programming languages and what does it mean, frameworks, auxiliary tools, operating system, architecture, network, type of companies and businesses, of course, software development life cycle, software testing, analytics, database, artificial intelligence, IT security, blockchain, game development, how it works, and IT infrastructure. What you need to know specifically about this industry, about this video game industry. You need to know some specific job titles, like the list we considered before, existing computer game platforms, and probably those emerging ones, major game studios, so let's say 3 to 5, game genres, jargon words, portrait of a gamer, game mechanics and game design, types of game monetization, game development cycle, role of publishing, both like companies and departments, game development stack, game engines, types of art specialists, the essence and role of community management, channels for finding employees, and video game culture. This you need to know to be great game dev recruiter. Also, you may use special tools and platforms and resources to learn all those tech terms, all those all those information, all those concepts and everything. So I recommend you to start from Glossary Tech, which is both plugin and the website. So I recommend you to search on website to read some. I wouldn't say it's articles, rather terms and their definitions. And of course, I highly recommend you to get their plugin right away and install if you don't have one at the moment, right? It will help you to highlight when enabled all tech terms on the page. Then you may point the pointer and read the definition of this tech term. Then I recommend you another platform which is fun to use. I would say it's even better than just Glossary Tech in terms of learning something new. It's called Tech Terms. You may browse Tech Terms, or I prefer this, browse by tech factor. They have 10 tech factors. So those 10 tech factors, they describe different level of understanding computer industry, everything about computers, right? Like level number 1, basic computer term used often. And 2, level number 10, highly specific and advanced term may impress even your nerdest friends. So you may go level by level, learn something from starting from something very easy to more difficult, right? Also, there are some additional tools like common game development terms and definitions. It's by Unity, right? So it's very important. So for example, AAA is like I know, like a most popular world in game development industry, probably. Every company, they dream to be AAA company. So AAAs, these are games that are created and released typically by mid-size or major publishers, usually anything that cannot be classified as indie. And there are other terms. Also, we have glossary of video game terms on Wikipedia. That's another source of information. I like this because you may read those terms and you may click and read the article and read additional sources, which is very convenient, right? So go and read Wikipedia as well. Then glossary of common game development, production, publishing, and business term by Jin Tan. So this is a list of different terms. Also, I recommend you to read this as well. Now, how much do game development recruiters earn? Actually, you will hardly find the term or the job title game dev recruiter, because most of companies, they just call them senior recruiter or technical recruiter. But what you may do, you may go to those websites like Glassdoor, like Payscale and others. You may find game development companies like Ubisoft or just Ubi, Blizzard, Electronic Arts or EA, and you may find senior recruiter salaries. So from what you see here, I just highlighted, you may expect to earn 150K per year, also with bonuses. For smaller companies, you may also expect stock option plan, right? So you may even you may earn even more. Yeah. How working in game development differs from working in IT. When I worked at Wargaming and then other IT companies like Preply and Ideals, I noticed that they have very different corporate culture. They all in IT industry, but game development actually, I visited lots of different game development companies, right, as a guest. So they have different corporate culture, of course. They have different kind of customers because game dev companies, they work for players which are very emotional, right? They are in some cases, they are very toxic. They give you absolutely radical candor, right? Stronger community of players, that's true. There are jobs that are not available in regular IT. Lots of people in game development, they have this passion for computer games. They like it. They can spend hours playing. And presence of cyber sports, which is very interesting and very unique. Okay, so who gamers are and how it affects video game studios. They could be casual gamers, hardcore gamers, programmers and cyber athletes, retro gamer or old school gamer, nerds and cheaters. Some cheaters are being sued by game development companies for their cheat, and it's becoming more and more popular because they are banning this. I'm sorry. For video game companies. I remember the time at Wargaming when Wargaming was very unhappy with cheaters who developed after pointer for World of Tanks who can easily point the tank of your competitor, of your enemy, and help you to win. Yeah. So let's start actually from this gamer. We say lots of this word like gamer, game development. Actually, the term gamer, this is originally in English and is referred to gambling enthusiasts. It has been used since at least 1422, which quite very, very, how to say, like ancient times. Not ancient times, but lots of years, of 100 years ago, when the first mention of the word was found in the laws of the town of Walsall in England. Generations later, the term gamer appeared as a description of players of the tabletop role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons. This happens in the mid-90s, 70s. So this is Dungeons and Dragons rules. So you see this. The gamer subculture is very interesting. Like those people, they adore games. They adore those characters. They adore those settings, those worlds, like fantasy world. Like actually, they like different settings, but probably fantasy is the most adorable. The second half of 70s, the heyday of gamers. The first video gamers didn't form at TVs with set-top boxes. No, they emerged in the halls of arcade machines. Actually, I remember those arcade machines in our city, they were at the cinema, and there were like probably 15 of them. I spent lots of my time and my parents' money playing those arcade machines. I was happy. I was happy because I had that in my childhood. It was 1990s. Yeah, early arcades like Night Diver from 1976 were simple and accessible, nothing more than a primitive slideshow. In 1978, Japanese publisher Taito releases Space Invaders, probably one of the most popular computer game or video game, literally changing the rules of the games. This alien ship shooting game ushered in an era of complex arcade games that challenged and made you sweat with exertion. So this is a video computer system made by Atari, probably one of the most famous company in early game development. Yeah, and you see how it looked. So the first console gamers, it wasn't until the release of the Atari 2600 that console gameplay began to gain momentum. With two joystick slots available, everyone could experience the arcade, and they could do this at home. Then PC gamers, which is another era of gamers. The Apple II or ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64 were the big names in the PC marketplace. I didn't have, actually, I had, not me, but my elder brother, he had ZX Spectrum, which was fun. The beauty of the home computer lay in the freedom these machines offered. Users were not restricted to specific software, but could do programming, early digital illustration, word processing, record keeping, and a host of other tasks. Well, and of course, the PC proved ideal for video games. Even Elon Musk, the guy you know, at the age of just 12 developed Blaster, for which he received $500, a lot of money by 1984 standards. The role of community in game development. People like gamers, they join forums and chat rooms. They prefer to spend all their free time out of game in those communities. They hold meetings, they do streamings, they hate, they whine about developers, of course, and they could even use the power of community to influence video games companies. Like they could vote for features, they could ban some new release, some updates. I remember time at Wargaming when gamers, they just didn't want some new features, so they vote to Wargaming just to give up on those features. Yeah, it was very difficult times. It's very difficult when the community is against you. So you have to cooperate with this community. Where do game developers study? Of course, they could learn. There are lots of online courses, lots of online schools, but the most popular probably are these three: Coursera, Udemy, Udacity. Company culture in game dev. This is totally different. I remember the time, even before my work at Wargaming, I faced this Wolf employee handbook that I highly recommend you to read. I will provide you link. Yeah, and when I read the book, I was so impressed. I was so impressed with the culture, with the idea of working in a game development company. But it was, you know what is interesting? I worked at media company, a TV channel company, which is another interesting in the industry. Lots of people in Ukraine, they dreamt about working or just being near the TV. So the industry was very interesting. The culture was very specific. But game development is totally different. It's more fun. Of course, it's more toxic. This toxic culture is something very unexpected that I met when I joined Wargaming company. You don't expect those smiling people, those young people, those fanatics of computer games to be toxic. And they are being toxic in every direction, even into direction of their own company. So they may love their company, they may be absolutely loyal and the toxic at that time. This is just a part of culture. You have to accept that, right? That being toxic is part of the culture, but it should have some limits, some, I don't know, some maybe um, boundaries not to be crossed. It shouldn't be personal, so it shouldn't be without personal attacks. But yeah, but general overall toxicity is something about this culture. It's very friendly. It's very relationship oriented. So they organize groups inside the company like clans. Yeah, they rely on relations and different in many ways from a typical IT company. Resources for reading on game dev. Of course, there are lots of different resources. So this is just the beginning, just something to start from, right? Just go and read and subscribe and probably subscribe to their emails. Go to their social pages, also subscribe there. Some books, of course, there are some good books. And if you are going to spend at least several years at game development industry, you better read these books because you'll be ready to discuss something with your developers, with your employees. You will understand more about their life. You will be more respected when you say, "Oh, I read that book. I read this and this in that book," right? You may even take some courses about game development. Why not? And even more useful links to consider. Okay, types of game-made game development companies. So there are developers or studios that just develop games. Also, there are third-party development companies, which is the development studio commissioned by publisher. So actually, in this world, there are generally there are two types of companies: the developer or the studio, and then the publisher. Like in the book industry, there is an author and there is a publisher. Author writes the book, publisher publishes the book, right? So this is a business. In game development, the same. Studios, they create games. Publishers, they sell their games to users, right? They help to attract users. In some situations, companies are both developers and publishers, like wargaming. In some cases, there are two different companies. Yeah. So also there are some outsourcing companies. They work for both publishers and studios. They could outsource part of the world, like they could create you art or music or something, or they could do the whole game, probably mostly for prototyping, right? Yeah, then publisher, engine creators, of course. There are companies that create game engine, and also there are indie developers. Indie stands for independent video game, a computer game created by an individual developer or a small team without financial support from a computer game publisher. And of course, studios and publishers, they are hunting for those indie developers because they want to get this successful story that just starting. Something to read, a book by a Valve employee. This is a Valve employee handbook, and common game development terms and definitions by Unity. Now your homework. This is just the beginning, so you start from this. You find mobile game developers in your city. You may use this link to LinkedIn and find some companies. And then after you found some companies, you find games they develop. You install the game, you register, and you play one game. You send the screenshot and you describe your impression, right? If you live in very small cities, your city doesn't have any mobile game company, so you expand the search to the region, right? So like you expand your search to 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers around just to find those companies. If you already work in this industry, I I'm asking you to find smaller computer game companies, specifically mobile game, from your town or from your original town. You find their mobile game, something you didn't play before, just to try something new. You install the game and you describe your impressions, right? So what I want here, I want you to try some new game, but this is not just any kind of game. The game that is developed in some city that is close to you in some way, right? Your city of birth, your city of living, whatever. But again, something new for you. It's not something that you play every day or you played before. What's next? During our next class, we will talk about game development process and game design. And of course, we will learn some game development recruitment specific. Okay. This is it. Thank you for your attention. I'm very glad to have you here on this course, and I'll be looking for receiving your homework and see you soon. Bye. Cheers.